So it's been a long time since I did one of these nectar garden videos, but here it is. And today we're going to focus on the Paradise Vegetable Garden, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of the Nectar Garden. Anyway, this year I had to install an electric fence in order to deal with a problem from a woodchuck, which I will refer to as the marmot. So he came in and he started pillaging my cucumber plants, my cabbage. He started picking tomatoes. He has really good taste and has an ability to determine which tomatoes are ripe and selects accordingly, so that had to come to an end. So I installed this fence, and because they're so small, I had to put the wires way down. I was going to run 3 wires, but tried to get away with 2. And that didn't quite work, because what he was doing is digging down underneath the bottom wire. So in order to correct that, I actually took these pieces of metal and set them up around the garden, so that way he couldn't dig or would be forced into the wire and get a shock. I had people tell me it wasn't going to work, and to a certain extent I agreed with them, because it's actually aluminum siding, so it's painted on one side, so I didn't think it would conduct electricity that well, but since I put it on, he hasn't been in, so it worked. Now I think it would be better to use aluminum flashing, maybe, I don't know, a foot, 2 feet wide. That way it's got conductivity on both sides. Run it all the way around here. You'll get the added benefit of keeping some of the weeds down and a little bit of reflected light. Those shiny surfaces will actually confuse different insects, so you can get a benefit that way, help to keep some of the insects down or keep them out of your garden. The thing that sucks about this rig is I've got these 2 wires sitting in front of me, so now I got to remember every time I walk in and out of here, which is a lot, to step over the wires. So here we go. So we're going to start off today with the tomatoes. I'm going to go up and down every row and talk about the varieties. But before I do that, I had problems with this system because these tomato plants got so big that when the wind comes and when they start getting heavy with fruit, they want to go over. So I had to take these T-posts and attach them to the tomato cage, which is in the pot with the tomato growing through it, in order to keep them upright. So we're heading in, and as you can see, the growth is rampant. So by rows, this row here is mortgage lifter. Last year I bought seeds for them. They were mislabeled. Seed company sent me the wrong seeds, if you can believe it. So I didn't get them last year, but we got them this year. And they're an heirloom tomato, a pretty good size. You can probably see that. Now some of these have a nutrient deficiency that I haven't quite been able to correct. They call it green stripe. So that's what that green stripe looks like. So I'm trying to add in some calcium and some potassium. And it's worked to a certain extent, but every pot has a little bit different soil in it, so it's kind of hard to correct everything at once. It's almost like you got to figure them out one by one. So these plants also have volunteers. This is a marigold. They're popping up here and there in different ones. They came from the soil mix that was in a raised bed last year. Now it's in these pots. And they been a lot of properties ascribed to them, but this one in particular is supposed to be the strongest at killing nematodes. It has nematocidal properties. Another volunteer was this honey nut squash. It also was a victim of the marmot. And I will say that the marmot is probably one of the most formidable intellectual opponents I've ever faced. For those of you that don't think animals are smart, you ain't thinking right. So this entire row, 9 plants, is mortgage lifter, and they're coming on. Got this guy in here. This looks pretty good. Should be harvested today. Got some more ripe ones down here. Now that's a tomato. And it still has a little bit of that green stripe, but I think it's going to be all right. Not all of them do. There's genetic variations. This guy here was supposed to be a mortgage lifter, but the mortgage lifter didn't make it, but the marigolds did quite well. Over here we have a nice cluster of fruits developing. Big, fat, juicy tomatoes. And these 3 going this way are also mortgage lifter. But then we get into the umpquas. The umpquas are a determinate tomato, and what that means is they will not continuously send out new shoots and make new fruit. They grow to a certain point, and then they kind of limit out. That's a new one for us this year. So people can say whatever about determinate, indeterminate. I was skeptical of them at first, but there's a fruit. You can't knock it. So after that, you start heading to the row of windsall. Now sometimes windsall will show nutrient deficiencies. I've had problems with blossom end rot on them before. And I had some of those problems this year, but they got some nice tomatoes on them now too. They've really come on in the last week or so. Excuse me. And a lot of these plants that I grew this year, they didn't like the soil mix that I started with. So everything was kind of slow getting in. The season itself was cold early, so that slowed it down. I would actually like to have these tomatoes ripe 3 weeks ago rather than now, but that's just how it went. So that was the windsall. Now we're getting into Canestrano DeLuca. And these guys are different because they have ribs. And these seeds came from the seed company. I ain't gonna say who, don't really matter, you can figure it out if you want to. But there is a variation between these and the seeds that I acquired that supposedly actually came from Italy, which I believe is true, but they look quite a bit different. So there's those guys. Now we're getting into a variety of paste tomato, specifically for paste. And this variety is Blue Beach. Now Blue Beach looks very similar to Opalka, but Opalkas typically will have droopy leaves, and I've had a lot of problems with blossom end rot. Now on these guys, not nearly so much. This plant went over yesterday, so I had to stake it up. But as far as what they look like ripe, there's one. The ends are clean. A little bit of spottiness up top, but I've had problems with green shoulders on them also. So this plant seems superior to me as far as how it grows compared to Opelka. The flavor is yet to be decided whether it actually compares. We'll find out when we start processing them. So now we're going into the Canestrano de Lucca that came from the seeds from Italy. Now these guys are another superior heirloom variety. Great big juicy indeterminate tomatoes. And some of these plants I actually carried over from last year. I took cuttings off the ones I really liked, carried them over indoors. But the ones that I carried over are performing the same way that they did last year. So I guess the question is, why don't people take cuttings off their best plants and bring them through? They're all different. All these heirloom varieties that are supposed to breed true, there's differences in some of them, especially the ones that are large fruited like this, because some of them be all grunky, mutated. Some of them will make a very consistent, large, clean fruit. So there's your mortgage lifter. There's your Canestrano de Lucca. A lot of these with the pink flesh have a nice flavor. I think that Brandywine is a little bit pinkish. But yeah, there's your mega tomatoes. We had another volunteer. What was this again?
Cleome.
Cleome. Yep. It seems quite happy to grow along with the tomatoes. So about the cultural techniques that I used, the air pots I talked about before, but basically they've got little holes in the side, the roots grow to the holes, and then the roots root prune because of exposure to the air. So rather than having a root system that circles around the inside of the pot, they bush out and fill out like a sponge. The landscape fabric, the white stuff, my original intention was to put it down and then cover it with wood chips, but I noticed that it reflects a lot of light, and I think that the reflection of the light increased the growth of everything in and around this garden. I mean, decide for yourself, but it's nuts. So now we're getting into some of the raised beds. This is fennel. Some of them were already harvested. And some of those actually regenerated. So those little guys down there, I don't know if that's something that I'm going to be able to harvest maybe later on this year or not. Swallowtails, the larvae feed on these. You can see that the bees really love them. I was going to try to get seeds off of them last year, but I think the birds ate all the seeds, honestly, because I didn't see seed one. But fennel seed is a really good spice all by itself. So this bed here had green peppers in it, which it still does, but I picked them clean. And then I jammed in some watermelons, not really thinking they would do too much. But they seem quite happy. This variety is called Mini Love. They're not quite as many as what I thought they would be, but there's one right there. Looks like that one's ready to go. So over here are the cabbage that are now unmolested by the evil marmot. And they're coming back. I probably won't get cabbage heads, but hey, at least my electric fence works. This bed had a couple volunteers, moss rose. Looks great. Just came out of the soil. It's a recycled potting mix from one of our local nurseries. So these monstrous overgrown plants are actually eggplant. Fried eggplant. Oh, there's another watermelon hiding. Yeah. Look at all the fruit on that thing. These things grew rampant. It was just nuts. There's some eggplant for you. If you need some, call me. In the back we got pepperoncini peppers, which work out really great for pickling. Over here was my first experiment with arugula, and it grew. Right now it's already bolting. You can see the flowers on it. I'm not sure if it's really palatable at this point in time. I'm thinking not. And this bed also had cucumbers in it, but they were a victim of the marmot. The only cucumber plant that made it through was this one right here. This other viney stuff in here is butternut squash. For those of you that haven't had it, actually it's a honey nut squash, not butternut. Let me correct that. So the honey nut looks like a butternut, but it's small. They're like a personal squash. But they are many. And if I can find one underneath all these leaves, I'll show you. All right, there you go. There's your honey nuts, like little mini butternut squash. And there was a bunch of them. The red leaf stuff is actually beets. And these things are just running everywhere. This little rig right here was supposed to be one of my vertical features. And there's actually supposed to be another cattle panel above this. And the whole idea was for the cucumbers to run up it. But when the marmot started pillaging, I had to switch gears and figure out this whole electric fence thing rather than continuing on with my planning. It's just how it went. But again, these guys are everywhere. I'm not really sure if they're ready yet, but I guess we're going to find out with this one. Over here is the potatoes. And these guys went in late too. But they did fairly decent. Potatoes themselves aren't really huge, but they're very high quality. I know that because I ate some last night. And let me see if I can find any under here. Some of this vine was picked yesterday. There's our German butterballs. So in this spot over here, I actually had a garden pond last year, but when I started using this fabric, I realized that I want to make everything more consistent and even. That way I can have 4 rows. So the garden pond is going to be no longer, but now it serves as a spot for me to throw all my leavings, and I'm going to cover it up with soil, and everything is going to be flat next year. So just make it easier to lay everything out. So now we got to try to not trip over the wire again. So these beds on the outside all had onions or garlic or leeks. It was all alliums. So all that actually gets harvested fairly early in the season. So I replanted different things. These are actually zucchini, Italian variety. Can't quite remember the name of it. Starts with a C, I think. There's also some radishes in here, more of those marigolds, more beets, and beans. Now, because there's no electric fence in this area, I kind of thought that maybe the beans would already be eaten down to nothing. But maybe after a couple of shocks, the guy didn't want to come back because he hasn't really bothered me inside or outside. I haven't seen him. And over here, we have more beans of a different type, more marigolds. This plant here is actually sun hemp, and again, it's another one that produces nematocidal compounds. So this soil, I'm hoping, will have that in it even in the next year, even if the marigolds aren't there. I believe that's true because I've had less problems with pests this year than ever before. I don't know if it's because of the extra light. I don't know if it's the year itself. I don't know if it's the marigolds and the sun hemp. Sun hemp, just for those that are wondering, is not related to cannabis whatsoever. It's in the bean and pea family. Its purposes are different than that. Even way out here, we still got these honey nuts growing and spreading around. So whatever I did this year, they loved it. There's one other thing I want to show. These little squash over here are patty pans. And they got planted late, even way after the potatoes. They're in the same bed. And some of them didn't take off, but they're making a big comeback now, so I hope to harvest some of them this year. And that's the Nectar Garden update, the only one you're going to get for 2025.